Change comes soon enough for struggling small businesses. Minister Stuart Nash joins me live from Napier. E te minita, tēnā koe. Thanks for joining us.
And welcome to beautiful Napier.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Look, as you heard there, Minister, small business is struggling with the current restrictions. What can you give them? What relief can you give them on Monday?
Well, as you heard and as you mentioned in your stringer, Cabinet's going to look at all this on Monday and decisions will be made then.
So, we mentioned that vaccine passports, are they going to go April 13th?
Decisions will be made on Monday. Cabinet is reviewing all the settings as you outlined, and after that, decisions will be announced and as and when Cabinet is ready. But, you know, I'm not going to preempt anything that Cabinet is discussing on Monday, Simon.
Sure. Do you still scan, Minister, when you go into a place? Do you still scan?
I do, always.
What is the point? Because not many people are.
Well, I just think it's part and parcel of the rules. You know, we've done this incredibly well for 2 years. We've kept our country safe. The vast majority of citizens have bought into the reasons of why we've done what we've done. And it is part of the whole process in ensuring that we have one of the best health responses. So, yeah, I do it.
OK. And just finally on this, I know you're going to say that the Cabinet's reviewing it, but venues are really struggling with the 100 people rule under the red light traffic light system. Can you offer them some relief there?
Simon, what I will say is that I have sat around the Cabinet table for the last 2 years for every single decision that Cabinet has made around COVID. Behind every single decision we make is the health and well-being of New Zealand communities and you know, the public. It will be the same test that we cast over the decision we make on Monday. So I'm not going to preempt what the Cabinet decision is going to be, but please be aware we are well aware of the impact that our health measures have on our communities. We are well aware of the impact this has on small businesses, but as mentioned, everything we do is about keeping New Zealanders healthy, safe, and as free of COVID as they can.
Yeah, sure.
But, we're moving on. It's about we're moving forward about the economic about the economic growth in a post-COVID world. And let's talk about tourism. Let's talk about the fact that we announced that from midnight the 12th of April, we're going to get Australians back into our community. From the 1st of May, we're going to get a whole lot of people from visa waiver countries can now come down to a place which is acknowledged as one of the safest places in the world.
On that, all right, so borders have been closed for 2 years as of today. So it's been tremendous impact on the tourism industry. Yes, they are coming back in April and a bit from May, but why not open up to everybody straight away, get them all back in?
Well, we need to stagger things. We need to see how things were working. We work with the tourism industry. This is how they want it, but it's also, we need to prepare for international tourists coming back. We've given a reasonable amount of time so people can get ready for the Australians. It's only a short period of time between the Australians and when overseas visa waiver tourists can come back. The other thing I would say is, people plan for these tours. Australians are a little bit different. They will jump on a flight, come over here, go down to Queenstown for the weekend, ski for the weekend and head back. If you're coming over from Europe or the States, it takes a little bit more planning. Yeah, it's a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, sure, but we don't. I mean, they don't have a date. I mean, we've got October, maybe it could be earlier. How can they plan if they don't have that particular date?
Not for visa waiver countries. So we're talking about.
I know, but I'm talking about the rest of the
majority.
World, like China. Okay, you want China, the big tourism market, to come back. When can they come back?
Yeah, but this was always about ensuring that we got this right. So Australians first, and pre-COVID, it's about 40% of our tourist market was Australians, and then we go to the next stage, which is our visa waiver countries, and then we go to the third stage, which were tourists who had visas to come in. But keep in mind, there are about 500,000 people from countries that required visas who still have valid open visas that will be able to come in.
Is it a fact that we can't open up straight away or quicker because we're going to have visa processing delays, that immigration can't handle it?
No, not at all. I mean, you're well aware that the traffic light system was put in place to ensure that we manage the impact on our health system, and that's what this is all about. We're at red at the moment because Omicron is sweeping through our communities. I mean, 3 of my 4 kids have had COVID. My wife's had COVID. We all know someone who's had it, but we're just assessing the impact on our health system. We have a much better handle on that. It's why we're making decisions on Monday. But then we're getting a whole lot of Australians in. Let's assess what what that will be, and we're forecasting between 3,000 and 13,000 people coming across a week. It's hard to know.
Right.
And then the next step, about just over 2 weeks later, we're open up to those from visa waiver countries, and that's the vast majority of tourists who came pre-COVID.
Sure.
And then we go to the stage 3.
So what about tourism levies? I mean, last year they were put up to pay for the COVID border restrictions, the green zones and the red zones. Are they under review? Will they go back down again now that we're opening up?
The IVL wasn't put up at all, which is the International Visitor Levy, but Cabinet hasn't made any decisions on that at this point in time.
All right. What about the cruise ship industry? They seem a bit unhappy that they're not allowed to open up until, I don't know, October or something like that. Why is a cruise ship tourist not allowed in but somebody on a plane is?
Yeah, working very closely with the cruise industry around what that will look like. That's Maritime New Zealand and health authorities are looking at how we could stagger that forward. But, we're starting at this point in time with Australians, and I think that's the really, really big thing, Simon. As mentioned, Australians made up 40% of tourists that came in. Australians, and a surprising fact is Australians travel more than any other nation to ski. And so the Prime Minister and myself were in Queenstown on Friday, talking to the ski operators there, talking to a lot of the tourism operators there. They're really looking forward to Australians coming over to Queenstown and the rest of the country.
That is good news
for them. For the Australian school holidays.
Yeah, that is good news.
It's great news for the whole of the country.
Absolutely. But I'm just looking forward. And so back to the cruise ships. I mean, what is the difference between a cruise ship tourist and a tourist coming in via plane?
Well, a tourist coming in via plane will have to have had a supervised test, a supervised test to show they haven't got COVID. They get over here within 12 to 24 hours. If you're on a cruise ship, it's a slightly different dynamic. But as mentioned, Simon, we're working very closely with the cruise industry to see what that will look like, and working with them on a date when we're allowing cruises back.
Okay, so when tourists do come in, they still will be required to test and then isolate if positive, if they contract COVID whilst here. How will that work? I mean, are they going to have to find an Airbnb, stay in a hotel? How will they isolate? What is the industry telling you?
We're asking tourists to do exactly what we're asking Kiwis to do. So keeping in mind, they will have to have a negative test before they jump on a plane. And to be honest, most airlines won't allow tourists on planes until they can prove they have had a negative test. So if they get here, they have COVID, or they test positive for COVID, then they will have to do exactly what we're asking Kiwis to do, which is self-isolate for 7 days.
OK, is that going to deter international tourists if they know that they're going to have to isolate? I mean, if they compare us to, say, like Britain, where there's no isolation whatsoever, will they say, well, I'm not going to go there until they scrap it?
Well, we're a different proposition than Britain. I think one of the reasons why people will want to come to New Zealand is because we're acknowledged as having one of the best responses. We're acknowledged as a safe country. And so I think that's, that'll be a really big reason why people will want to come here. But keep in mind, we're not expecting the same level of tourism back initially that we saw in a pre-COVID world. So this will, it'll be a slow burn, but we'll get there eventually. But, the head of Heathrow isn't expecting flights back to pre-COVID levels for another 5 years. And we think it'll take 4 or 5 years to get back to pre-COVID levels. But we are changing the way we do things in terms of tourism in this country anyway.
Right. I mean, you're talking about making it more sustainable, I guess. But, I just wondered, you're talking about the global tourism outlook there. I mean, as you say, it's not expected to bounce back for quite a while. What long-term support for the tourism industry are you offering? I know you put out the $49 million support package, but that was just for certain South Island areas. The Tourism Industry Association wants that package to be for everybody around New Zealand. Is that something you would consider?
No, well, what we did do is we identified the regions that had a significant reliance on international tourism. This was done about a year ago. And so we put out a package that recognised that there were some regions of our country, mainly those 5 districts in the South Island, that had a significant reliance on international tourists. Keeping in mind, domestic tourism increased in Queenstown over the last 2 years by 42%, but I will acknowledge that didn't go, it certainly didn't make up for the loss of international tourists. But what we said is these are the 5 districts that had a significant reliance on international tourism compared to the rest of the country. They need a little bit more help, so $100 million of the package went to them. Yep. The other $100 million went across the country. So this is an industry that has received in excess of $600 million of direct support, but overall about $4.1 billion in terms of wage subsidies, COVID resurgence payments, etc., etc.
The outlook is whilst tourists are coming back, the outlook for the broader economy is not great. In fact, ANZ economist Sharon Zollner has described it as pretty ugly. Consumer and business confidence is down. As a small business minister, how are you going to encourage people to get out there and get spending?
Well, I'd push back on that a little bit. I think GDP figures for last year showed that we had growth of about 5.2%. We have got record low unemployment. We've got businesses doing really well, but we have got stresses. Of that, there is no doubt. Global supply chains are still stressed.
Inflation is
everything
massive,
I read says that'll. Yeah, well, inflation's increasing. There's a lot of that, though, we can't help. There's a war going on in Ukraine at this point in time. The price of oil has gone through the roof. We understand that. It's the reason why we dropped 25 cents on excise tax. But, we're managing the economy in a way that I think is going to see us through this. As mentioned, everything that I'm reading is saying that the stresses will come off global supply chains in 6 to 12 months. That will reduce inflationary pressures. Minister Farfoy is working on a border reopening. An immigration reset, which I think will make a really big difference to getting skilled workers in here. Minister Hipkins over the last 2 years has put a number of policies in place that's allow Kiwis to train. So you don't think it's going to be? I'm really positive about that.
Okay, so you don't think it's going to be that tough? All right. So does that mean in the forthcoming?
No, look. I'm not saying there aren't stresses on the economy. There are stresses on the economy. But there are stresses that we are seeking to manage and working really hard to come up with solutions for.
Have
a number of the solutions that we've come up in the last 2 years will address these.
Okay, have you, as Small Business Minister, done enough for the people that have really struggled in the last 2 years? Not just tourism, but small business, hospitality. It's been a really tough 2 years. You're their champion. Have you done enough?
I think we've done a hell of a lot. You look at the wage subsidy, you look at COVID support payments. As mentioned, you look at the amount of money that's gone into the tourism sector. We have, as a government, we have spent billions and billions of dollars keeping people connected to their businesses, keeping businesses open, supporting them. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this hasn't been tough times for certain sectors of the economy. It has. But looking forward, in terms of the economic rebuild in a post-COVID world, I'm very positive for this country.
All right, Small Business Minister and Tourism Minister, Stuart Nash, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Simon.